Liquid Sky is the story of space aliens who come down to Earth to feed on our orgasms, and they get them from two main sources. The one is after sex, and the other is after heroin use. And luckily for the aliens, they land on top of a building in the 1980s in New York City. They land on top of the penthouse, and in the penthouse there's a couple. It's a lesbian couple. One of the girls is the rock star, alternative rock star, who's also the pusher of the area, and her girlfriend is a supermodel who's also a junkie. So there's lots of sex and drugs in the apartment, and also they have their friends coming and going, and so there's a lot of sex and drugs involved in the apartment and the area. So it's good for the aliens, but it's not so good for the humans, since once they've fed, once the person has the orgasms, well, they die. The process kills the humans. And the thing is that Margaret, the supermodel, she's not very happy in this countercultural scene. Like, she's very popular, and she's getting ever more popular by the day. She's becoming the big thing in this scene. But this scene, the counterculture of the 1980s in New York, it's horrible. And that's actually a big part of the movie, is that people are basically hedonistic monsters. And she gets, raped once. It's pretty intense. And once she gets raped, the guy dies. And she realizes, our Margaret, that she can avenge herself of all the people who do bad things to her, and there are plenty of those. She can avenge herself by giving them orgasms. So that gives you an idea. She starts going around finding people who have wronged her, at least in her mind, and she either gives them drugs or has sex with them, and they die. And so she's kind of like this exterminating angel. And in the meantime, there's a German ufologist who's tracking the UFOs, and he's seduced by like a Jewish woman. There's this relationship, and curiously, that part of it is kind of very cute and touching and lighthearted, the whole German and the Jewish girl thing. He's ultimately tracking those aliens, and he starts being witness to those murders. And all this is happening as the countercultural scene is unraveling, and as the movie progresses, this very sexually ambiguous, polyamorous, polysexual, very drug heavy scene, we start to see how much like the counterculture of the 1960s, the nice sounding slogans of the counterculture are really often very shallow. And they're just a way of justifying base commercialism and greed, and, as I said, hedonism, and taking advantage of people. So ultimately, the movie kind of explains and shows this dark underbelly of the very seductive sex, drugs, and rock and roll countercultural ethos. And all this is just scratching the surface of what's good about Liquid Sky. It's really one of the most successful, both financially and artistically, one of the most successful underground movies of all time, basically. It's visually extremely striking. If you've seen it, it's all, like this electro-clash, Duran Duran aesthetic, but more extreme Duran Duran aesthetic, neons and flashy hair and makeup. It's quite striking, and the music is even more extreme. It's described often like as a punk music, means new wave music, but really it's like having ice shards. Like a synthesizer has created ice shards which are picking your brain. It's basically what the music sounds like. It's very unpleasant, and part of the movie is very unpleasant. I mentioned the rape scene, and actually the first time I tried watching it, I stopped at that point. I think I tried twice, and both times I stopped at the rape scene, which is about 20-25 minutes in. It was because it was too much. It's too harsh. It was too unpleasant with the music and so forth. But actually, once I made it through that scene on my third attempt, I discovered that the movie is a lot more than that, and even that harshness, which is very much felt in the music and in the tone, well, you kind of get used to it, and you notice how much beauty there is, and how much intelligence there is, how much humor it is. It's very smart, very funny, and there's also something which is very touching, which was very surprising to me, because I mentioned the love scene, the love story between the ufologist, the German ufologist, and the Jewish girl. And as I mentioned, as she's seducing him, she's making veiled references to the Holocaust, right? But it doesn't come off, it comes off as very New York. It comes off as light-hearted and smart and playful, but also, addressing the elephant in the room. It has a very unique charm, and it has as I mentioned, a strong New York flavor. Like if you've watched all those movies from the 1970s, 1980s that really felt like New York, like going from the Scorsese movies all the way maybe like up to Ghostbusters or something like that, when they really cleaned up the city. Well, Liquid Sky is pre-cleanup. There's nothing clean in the movie at all. It's very dirty, but it has that freedom. It has that anarchic freedom of mind, and it's exhilarating. So I've heard that the director who co-wrote the movie with the star of the movie, the director is called Slava Zuckerman, and he co-wrote it with his wife, Nina Vekerova, and the actress who is named Anne Carlyle, who also plays like the chief bad guy. So there are two supermodels, our heroine Margaret, and the truly awful Jimmy, who is just a super selfish junkie zombie who's just mean-spirited, a truly awful human being. And he's also played by Anne Carlyle. So the main actress plays both the heroine and the bad guy, the chief bad guy, but they're really mirrors of each other. It really works very well. And Anne Carlyle co-wrote the scenario with the husband and wife team who produced and directed the movie. And apparently, Mr. Zuckerman has been working on a sequel. He's still alive. I think Anne Carlyle is also still alive. And at least maybe 7 years ago, they were still talking about making Liquid Sky 2. And that would be so incredibly, fantastically awesome. I think the director is 80 years old now, but I really, 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 really hope we get to see Liquid Sky 2 eventually by Mr. Zuckerman, hopefully with Anne Carlyle as well. That would be quite a movie experience. Liquid Sky is by far one of the most extreme, one of the smartest, one of the strangest, one of the most striking science fiction movies I've ever seen. It comes strongly recommended. I've seen more than 1,000 science fiction movies so far, by my calculations, 1,065 as of yesterday. I've learned a lot by watching these movies, a lot of strange constatations and realizations. If you're curious to know more, well, here's a video where I explain it all.